All right, so picture this. You want to buy your first investment property. You're spending months and months and months searching. You finally identified the perfect property. You take a look, $7,000 a month in rental income is coming in. The numbers look good to you. But what if I were to tell you that you could be off by $1, $2, almost $3,000 a month in your rental numbers? In today's video, I'm gonna share something that I've learned over hundreds and hundreds of deals that will save you thousands of dollars. So stick around through the whole video. And if you just take care of this one element, I promise you will dodge dozens and dozens of potential dud properties that on the surface look like winners. If you guys don't know me, my name is Sage Jankowitz. I am a realtor based in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. I have closed over 300 deals in the last 3 years. If you guys like the content of this video, please hit that subscribe button and the link below. If you guys have any questions during, after, anytime for that matter, hit the Calendly link in the description below. I offer free 15-minute consultations to answer any questions you guys might have. Now let's get into the video. So the way that I think about analyzing a property from an investment perspective, there's basically different levels of thinking. And I want to kind of run through the different levels that I have seen over the years. Now, level one thinking is your super basic thinking. And I encounter people like this more often than you think. But here's what they basically do. They see a two-family, it comes up on Zillow or Redfin, they have the rents listed in the description, they put them together, they say, okay, it's $4,000 and $2,000, that's what it says on Zillow. They assume, okay, that's $6,000 a month, there's 12 months in a year, I'm walking away with $72,000 a year in rental revenue. And that's the end of the conversation. There's no thought about, well, what if it's not rented for a year? What if those numbers are off in either direction for that matter? It's just like very straightforward. Here's the numbers, and I'm gonna base all of my calculations based on that. So I would put that as level one thinking. Now, level two thinking, I kind of think of it as sort of like that next level of thinking. And this is where I think a lot of the people watching this probably come into play in terms of their thought process, which is they will take it a step further. So they're gonna first of all do a comparable analysis on their own or with a trusted realtor. They're gonna have them run a little bit of a search and say, okay, for a similar 2-bed, 1-bath in the last handful of months in this area, what did something like these units rent for? Which I think is a great thing to do, and I highly recommend. They're gonna look at vacancy rate and they're gonna say, okay, it seems to me like given this area, maybe I can assume over the long run, maybe it's 11 out of 12 months it'll be rented, or 11 and a half, or 10 out of 12, depending on the area. Again, they might lean on their realtor to help them guide them in sort of what is this area like from a vacancy perspective, what are these particular units like? And then the last thing that they might do with this sort of level two thinking is what are the trends over the last couple of years? So how can I kind of think about rent increases year over year? Is this an area that's kind of been steady for the last 5-ish years? Has it been increasing? Is there something coming to town or recently came to town that will rapidly change the desirability of these particular rentals? Am I gonna be doing something to this rental, upgrading it, gut renoing these units, and that should dramatically change that? So they'll kind of take all these elements into play and come up with a rental number, rental revenue, both for the month and ultimately for the year. But then there's the level 3 thinkers. And the level 3 thinker is going to take everything that that level 2 thinker does, but they're gonna take it another step. And they're gonna look at a lot of other pieces of information to help them make an informed decision. Now, this video is not about all of those different data points. Maybe at some other video in the future, I will get into it, but I don't know if I want to put out, a 3-5 hour video on all the different things I've seen over the years. And so for today's purposes, I'm going to just focus on one very specific element that I think is super important that a lot of investors wildly don't understand. It never even enters their head. And I see investors make all kinds of mistakes. And that is the idea of the number of bedrooms per unit. This is so important, guys. Now, what happens with your average investor? They'll see a unit, it could have 6 bedrooms in the unit, and they say, wow, it's renting for $6,000. That's $6,000 in my pocket. And they will treat that in the exact same way as they would a 1-bedroom that's maybe getting $2,500 a month. And they just say, okay, that's just more income in my pocket. And that's the end of the story. But what's the reality of the situation? As you go up in bedrooms, and I generally think of this from 3 and up, So starting at 3-bedroom units, you're gonna find that the time it generally takes for a unit to get rented is longer. A 4-bed generally takes longer than a 3-bed, and a 5 and up generally takes an even longer time. So whereas a studio, 1-bed, 2-bed, if you're invested in the right areas and you're guided right by your realtor, generally those should rent relatively quickly. In the areas I work, for most parts of Cambridge and Somerville, a studio, 1-bed or 2-bed should be renting in 30 days or less. A 3-bed, depending on the time of year, depending on the condition and location, it could be a little bit longer, maybe more like 30 to 45 days in general. There are exceptions that are quicker, but in general, something like that. And then as you go up to 4, 5, and 6 beds, generally speaking, you want to have more like a 75 to 120 day period. It just takes a longer time. And why is this? The vast majority of people that are looking are smaller groups, at least in the Cambridge Somerville areas that I work in. So there are just a lot more people that it's a couple, it's 2 roommates, it's a single person that needs a little bit extra space. There's many more people like that than there are groups of 4 and 5 that are open to living together. And I've also found since COVID, there's been even fewer groups like that. So it tends to take a little bit longer to get these rented. So then the next logical question, if you know that it takes longer to rent, 3 beds, 4 beds, 5 beds, 6 beds, should you just avoid properties that have a lot of bedrooms? My personal opinion is no, absolutely not, but you need to go in with the right expectations. So for example, if you were to acquire a property in December, a 2-family, where one of the units had, say, 5 bedrooms, you have to go in with the understanding that there's a good chance, if closing is 45 days from offer acceptance, and you're able to show the place right after the purchase and sale is signed, that you may be in a situation where you may have 45 to 60 days after closing where that unit is vacant until you can get it filled. You must build that into your calculation. In addition, if you own a property like this, you need to ensure that those units that have 3, 4, 5 bedrooms, that you have proper notice period in your leases. Most likely you're going to want to have a 90 or 120 day notice period, especially for 4+ bedrooms. By having an appropriate notice period and explaining to the tenants when they initially sign the lease that you need a longer notice period, you're going to be in a position where you have the proper runway to find the right tenants. If you give yourself only a 30-day notice period, or you're on a tenancy at will, and a 4 or 5 bedroom apartment decides to break their lease in December, you're in a position where you're very likely to lose 2, 3, or 4+ months of rent, which can be devastating on your numbers, and very quickly you can go from green or break even to well into the red. This also means you need to understand your seasonality. So there are certain areas of town, for instance, South Medford, that is very Tufts heavy. If you have a property that is very Tufts heavy, they tend to be focused around the school season. So if you're in the dead of winter, you're gonna really struggle to get these 4 or 5 beds rented, and you're almost certainly gonna get hit really badly. There are other parts of town where seasonality still plays a role, but it's a little bouncier, can kind of bounce back during those times. So for instance, if you're looking in Central Square or in Cambridgeport, which is in my mind an A investment area from a rental perspective, even in the off season, you should be able to get it rented. However, you should expect to see a slight decline in rent during that time of year. So you need to factor that into your numbers. At the end of the day, studios, 1 beds and 2 beds are generally lower stress, take less time to rent, and there are more people that want them. Do I think that 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units are not worth exploring? Not at all. I see great ones all the time. I've helped many clients buy them, and I think they can be really successful. You just need to set the right expectations with yourself, with your tenants, and you need to understand what you're getting yourself into when you're running your numbers. As long as you do all of that, you can create a great situation regardless of bed and bath count. It really comes down to expectations. If you guys have any questions about this, hit me up on my Calendly link below, and I'll see you guys next time.